Started. So welcome Thursday night, element 4. So welcome everybody, welcome. Allie and I are excited for this element this week, building a healthy mindset. This element, hands down, is probably one of the most important elements in the book. And I think it's important to note too, here again, we're 4 weeks into this journey with the Life Book. This element right here should simmer a little bit longer with you. I know Dr. A says, average time to complete 1 to 2 weeks. I'm going to just speak frankly, because that's typically what I do. So y'all, I love you all. Some of y'all need to sit here for a while. And every now and then we all need to revisit it for a little while. And here again, some of the things we may talk about this evening may be strikingly different than what you expected. So if you're watching the recording, and you're new to the program, we all came in here. My goal when I started, if I could just lose 40 pounds, it'd be so great. I wanted to lose 40 pounds. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. So anyway, with that said, but this element right here and this whole process of really creating a transformation. So over the last couple of elements, we've kind of given you the tools. We've got your why in place. We begin to work, in element 2, we begin working on which 2 macro habits of health that you wanted to work on. And then last week, we started figuring out what do you want to create as you move forward. And this is where element 4 comes in. So mindset this week, recognizing you are the dominant force in your life. Guys, every emotion and everything that goes on in our world has to go through a filter, and that is you. And so when you become that dominant force in your life, and Dr. A talks about in the book, he says, I'm being very serious. When you have internal stability and external equilibrium, each day of your life will become an all-out magical process. You will begin to possess a habit that most have never even thought about. Of course, skill set this week is going to be understanding the drama triangle and the empowerment triangle. And then, of course, the action this week is going to be adopting a growth mindset for success. So with that said, Allie, I know, so Allie's fighting a cold, so we will bear with her. If she gets to coughing, I'm going to grab the reins of the horse and pull it in just a little bit, and we'll keep on riding. So go ahead.
All right, awesome. Well, what I love about this, and this was one of the things that I didn't realize that I did, but when we talked about finding your why, and making sure that internal conversation is, I'm doing this because I want to do it, not because I should do it, or I feel like I need to do it or whatever. That makes us a dominant force for us to claim it as, that's what I want. So the other part of that is, we can't let what's going on around us take us away from that, and we're going to talk about the drama triangle. And we're going to talk about the different mentalities we can have in different situations that takes the power away from us of being the dominant force and puts it on exterior things. So, if you were one of those people like me who was like, well, I'm not going to start this journey right away because I have a lot going on in my life and I just don't see how I can do that right now. That is me not being the dominant force in my life, right? Because if I know I need to drop those 50 pounds because I'm literally on the edge of diabetes and my blood pressure's off the charts and my doctor's like, girlfriend, you need to lose some weight now. And I'm going, well, stuff's kind of busy right now. I am letting outside factors run my life. I'm not in charge. And so this element and element 23 are going to show you how to have solid footing no matter what's going on around you. And so my mental image when I read this is, when you go to the beach and you're a little kid, and if you go out in the water and you stop where the waves are breaking, what happens? A wave comes, you get knocked down. A wave comes, you get knocked down. You try and get back up, the next wave knocks you down, right? And that's kind of how we operate in life when we're operating in the drama triangle, which will go on in a minute. What we're going to do instead is we're going to teach you how to walk out past the breakers so that when those waves come, you just bop up and they go past. You bop up and they go past. They aren't knocking you down. You see it coming and you respond rather than reacting and getting knocked down. And I know that sounds so strange, but honestly, that is a big part of what got us off track in the first place with our health. You know, a lot of times we think it's the food that we were eating or what we were drinking or not exercising enough, but really it comes back to, you know, the food goes in our mouth because of what's going on up here. So it goes back to that. So I love how Dr. Anderson starts out on page 104 and he asks us some questions. And it's really interesting how you answer these. Now, I know you probably look at these and go, well, I know what he probably wants me to say. But I read some of these and I'm like, there are times when I've claimed some of these other things as the reason why my health wasn't in a good place. So who is responsible for your current health and well-being? Your parents, your spouse, because he brings unhealthy food in the house, your friends, your environment, your genetics. Have you ever said, oh, my whole family's large, it's just in our genes? Or is it you? Well, the correct answer is you. You are responsible for your current health and well-being. It doesn't matter about all that other stuff. It's us. It's taken in these beginning steps, and that's very squirmy stuff to read and squirmy stuff to check the box of. But the correct answer is you. So, and it talks, and that's just kind of helping us go, I've got to take charge, that I've got to take ownership of that. It's nobody else's fault. It's nobody else's, you know, job to make sure that my health is on track. That's on me. Everybody else is living their own life, it's hard enough to keep track of our own stuff, let alone someone else's. So that belongs to me. So here are some other questions he asks a little bit further on page 105. He asks about your intelligence. Your intelligence is something basic you can't change. Is it something you can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are? Is it fixed by the age of 5 and you can't change beyond then? Or is it no matter how much intelligence you have, you can always significantly change it? And then your character, he asks about that. Is your character as a person set and there's not much that you can do to change that? I used to say I'm a sarcastic person, but you know what? I'm not a sarcastic person. That was a choice. I'm not a sarcastic person at all, but I was always really sarcastic because it was a way I chose to respond or react to things going on around me. Is your character flexible so you can do things differently, but the important parts can't really be changed? Is your character determined by your family and can't be altered? Or is your character changeable and you can always modify basic things about the kind of person you are? On page 106, these are really great questions. I love these. And when we answer questions like this, we learn a lot about ourselves. You know, we learn a lot about, oh, this is something that I tell myself, and, you know, I don't know if that's right. When I'm presented with a challenge, when something bad happens in the world, right? When I'm in an argument, when I find myself overeating, you know, when all the stuff was going down in the Ukraine, Dr. Anderson came and he talked to a lot of us, and he was saying, you know, it's very upsetting what's going on over there. And there are people who are so upset by it that they just can't, they literally can't function today, but there's nothing they can do about it. Like you and I, we can pray about it. And he goes, you can do everything you can send money, whatever. He goes, but then past that point, you've got to do what you can do in your life, in your sector of the world. And that's important, but you can't let something that you have no control over completely stop you from doing what you're meant to do and serving your purpose where you are. And I think so many times in our lives, we do that and we don't even realize that's what we're doing. That was a very aha moment for me with Dr. A. On page 107, it says, when I find myself getting upset because someone makes me look stupid, I blank, 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 or blank. So in the diagram, you see a little person like this, who's closed and defensive and wants to be right. And I very much operated in that space a lot when I started this journey. And then this above the line person is like, woo, and they're open and they're curious and they have a growth mindset. The only difference between the person on the bottom and the person on the top is the person on the top is operating out of their thinking brain and not their Labrador brain. Your Labrador brain is the emotional part of your brain, and our emotions drive action, and it's not always good. So when we are running on our emotions all the time, it doesn't allow us to engage the thinking part of our brain, the problem solving part of our brain. And we get all caught up in the emotion, and sometimes it's crippling. So it's really cool to learn how to recognize when you are in that bottom space and go, oh, I'm kind of acting out of emotion right now. What if I were to just look at this? I always think of it like Spock from Star Trek. What if you Spock it out and just kind of take the emotion out and look at it from a logical standpoint or a curious standpoint? Don't feel bad if you are below the line. Like when I started this program, I was below the line a lot. That's just how I operated. I thought that was normal. So unpacking, and of course, we talk always every week about we're just building awareness. Where am I right now? Building this awareness. It's not about beating ourselves up for where we are. We go above and below the line 80 times a day, but just building an awareness of, oh, this is below the line behavior. All right, hold on. I'm going to pop it up above the line and take the emotion out and see what I can do here. And then I'm going to do what I can, and I'm going to move on. So in psychology, how an individual responds to their world is referred to as the locus of control. In other words, do I make life happen, or is it happening to me? Who is in charge? I love that. When we place blame on others, we give away our power and we surrender control. And we place the cause and reason for why we're not thriving outside of ourselves. And when we decide we are the dominant force in our lives, we take back our power and responsibility, and the cause now lies within ourselves. And that's where we grow, and that's where we change, and that's where new habits and new cue trigger response patterns develop in our brain. And that's where we move forwards in our health rather than backwards in our health. It's so cool the way that works. So let's look at page 109. This is the drama triangle. And there's a victim, villain, and hero. So I'm going to go over each one of these, or Kenny, if you want to go over them, you can. I don't care which one of us does it.
Yes, I mean, the drama triangle. And so if you've never seen this could be a little bit of an awakening tonight. But, so every one of us, when somebody says something to us, whether it's I know Allie used this example before, your teenage daughter walks in and says something to you, you've got a couple of ways you can respond to it. And so how you respond, or whatever filter you run it through in your brain, you could put yourself in several areas of this drama triangle. And I'll just kind of go through, it's on page 109. So basically there's three areas where you circle the bases. Number one is playing the victim. Life is always happening to me. My car keeps breaking down. Gas prices aren't fair. We've all seen and heard many examples of this. And then the next part is villain. Basically that's where you point blame. Who is at fault? I blame you, them, or even myself. But you're pointing blame at somebody. And then of course the third is being the hero. That's me. I like to avoid conflict where at all possible. And so I openly admit to doing this quite a bit. And, this is where you enable victims. Instead of empowering them to look for specific answers, sometimes I will give them everything they need, vomit too many more things at them. And, or, I'm here to save the day. So, and we can cycle around that. We can come in one area and then let it sit for a while. But, Dr. A talks about, he says here, it also leads to bad habits like emotional eating, increased alcohol intake, because, hey, I had a crappy day. I'm hungry. And you know what? I ain't going home to fix dinner because that's too much work. So that's me circling through that drama triangle. See how that works? And, smartphone addiction, gambling, stress, and depression. Rather than succumbing to the drama triangle, which we now know exists and can prepare for, we're going to create a new triangle that will help empower you and others. So that's where we go to page 110, where we talk about the empowerment triangle. So instead of, being that victim, we're going to be the creator. And basically that means I am in charge of what happens here. I'm creating my new story. Instead of being the villain, we're going to be the challenger. I'm open and curious to learn. Hey, I had a stressful day. I'm having this feeling of wanting to emotionally eat. Why am I feeling that way? Why am I feeling that way right now? And that's where you just slow down. Dr. A says, take a drink and think. And that will really help you kind of, put yourself back out of that drama triangle and put yourself into that empowerment triangle. And then, of course, instead of being the hero, you can shift over in the empowerment triangle to being a coach. I empower others to be successful. I help others get better. So
let me just say something really quick. I don't want to interrupt you,
you're
Kenny,
fine.
but I think this is so important. Being a hero surprised me that wasn't a good thing, because we all the Marvel comics and the heroes coming in. But think about it. If every time your child needs to tie their shoe, if you go, baby, I got it. What do they never learn how to do? They never learn how to tie their shoe. If your child goes, oh, mama, can you bring my homework to school? I left it at home today. Can you bring it to me to school? I didn't mean to. I left it on my desk. It's so hard because I don't want my baby to get that 0 in their homework, but she's got to feel the discomfort of not remembering to do that, and she'll remember to do it next time. If I hero her and I go grab it and bring it to the school, she's not learning that it's important for her to remember to do that, because I won't always be there. When we hero other people in our lives, we're always in someone's business trying to help them. A lot of times the reason we hero is because if we're really busy heroing everyone else, it makes it so that we don't have to work on ourselves. It gives us an excuse to not turn and do the stuff we need to do for ourselves.
Yep.
All of these things do that. The villain and the victim do that too. It's basically making your attention on everyone else and not focusing inwards and going, well, what does this have to do with me? I just want to say that.
No, absolutely. I mean, and we've all got personal experiences, and a lot of times, here again, a lot of us Ed Milet said this morning, and I loved it. He said, when you're young and you're a child, you're closer to God than you are right now. So everything's perfect when you're a child. But over the years, people throw stuff at you. They throw stones at you. They tell you you're not good enough. And I've shared this before too. My 12th grade guidance counselor said I would never make 6 figures in my life. I would never do it. We had that conversation. And I see Allie looking at me right now like I've got 3 heads. But
that guidance counselor obviously did not know Kenny very well.
That was a conversation that she had, and basically what it was I went to apply for financial aid. And my parents back then, they owned a grocery store, so yes, they made a good amount of money. And she said, they made almost $250,000 in the mid '80s. There's no way you'll ever make that much money when you get older. And so that was a limiting belief that she threw on me because she was just playing the villain right then. And I may not have had the 4.5 GPA like the top girl in my daughter's 8th grade class had yesterday, and 3.0 by when I graduated, which is fine. And but I didn't try as hard as maybe I could have. And so here again, these things are thrown at you. So you've got 2 choices, and I had a choice. I could either sit in that she threw at me and let it just haunt me for the rest of my life. But my mentality was, I'm going to prove her wrong. And I've proved her wrong every year for the last 29 years.
How many people in here have had things said to them over their life? Anything about their looks, about their intelligence, about their capabilities. Somebody said something to you about you, and you carried that. You didn't mean to carry it, but it's always been in this little backpack that you carry around all the time. Part of this journey is dumping that backpack out and throwing that garbage in the trash where it goes. It has nothing to do with you. Absolutely. Someone else's opinion of you is none of your business because it has nothing to do with you.
That's it.
And letting that go is part of healing in this drama triangle. It is so huge.
He talks about taking this trip to the mental gymnasium. So and all of us have gone through this. And here again, for me, it was for years, and I still fight it every now and then. Whatever I do, it's never enough, because I've got her sitting in, and here I don't talk to myself that way that much anymore. However, I used to be horrible about it. You know, I could have a great year financially, a great year in my marriage and everything else. And everybody's looking on the outside going, man, everything's rolling. You're doing great. But inside of me, I'm not good enough. And so, but what I've learned is you got to let that stuff go. And, you know, you can't let that opinion, you know, rule over your life. But a lot of people do. And it is said we can hear something one time, but speak it to ourselves thousands of times. Absolutely, Christina. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's the thing is, from a young age, we're all taught, you know, just like I said earlier, you're born in a perfect world and you get immediately told, don't do this, don't talk to this person, don't go here, don't go there. You know, you don't want to make too much money. If that's some people have religious beliefs and they think if you make too much money that you're greedy. So all these things are thrown at us. And then we get into adolescence and more things are thrown at us. And so you start wearing these things as clay. And now we're in that process of chiseling it away or dropping that backpack. And you've got to work through this. So everybody's situation and circumstance here is going to be markedly different. You know, whether if you're in an abusive relationship or, you know, maybe whatever it is, you've got to start unpacking those things. And this is, I'll be frank with you all. So your coach is not a counselor. And so if you're at a point where maybe you're trying to shake some of this emotional baggage and you're not sure of the proper techniques and or tools, guys, it may be time to seek some professional help. And doesn't mean that you're crazy.
I see a counselor every other week. I do. I love it. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And what they'll do is if number one, if you've got that awareness right now that, hey, something's not right. You know, I keep feeling this way, but I don't know how to shake it. If you don't have the tools to help you shake it, that doesn't mean that you're not, you know, that you can't be helped. So that's what you've got to do is raise your hand and, you know, seek that help so that you can get some of this stuff off your chest and out of your mind so that when you get to your goal, in my situation, I won't go back and say, you're not worthy. You're never going to do this. It's never going to be good enough. And so I just wanted to bring that to light. And, you know, Dr. A talks a little bit, and Ali briefly touched on this earlier about having that stimulus and that response. And for some of us, that stimulus, and I talked earlier about, you know, your teenage daughter saying something vile to you and you want to just spew out all the negativeness to them. And that's where he just says, you got a couple choices. You can stop, challenge, and choose. You can stop yourself, challenge yourself, take a drink, think about what you're going to say, and then respond in maybe a teaching manner instead of just pointing that finger and yelling and whatever it is you're going to do. Or you've got to think about what you want to do and how you want to respond, because there's always going to be that stimulus and then that response. So just keep that in mind as well too.
And we have autopilot settings. Our brain wants to run on autopilot as much as it can because it's taking in and processing so much information all the time, all day long, that as many things as it can, it wants to set up on autopilot. But the problem is we have a lot of autopilot settings that don't serve us. And so that's why it can be, you know, that we really do have to pause and build an awareness of what's going through our mind and our thoughts, because, you know, if we drop into a victim, villain, or hero mentality a lot, we have, just because, you know, that's kind of been our autopilot settings. We've got to catch ourselves doing that and go, wait a minute, am I trying to put the blame on today for somebody else? You know, am I, you know, if somebody says, oh, I had the most horrible day at work because so-and-so was being a blah, blah, blah. And then be like, well, I allowed their behavior to change my mood today. I allowed that. That was a choice. I didn't have to let her bad mood affect me, but I allowed that to happen. I scratched that itch. That's part of that drama, right? I kind of plugged into her drama and let it affect me. So then I go, all right, cool. Making a note of that. I'm not going to do that next time. You know, like these are things that we do, and it's a choice. So when we start recognizing that we do that, we're building that awareness. And then we go, how can I do this differently? How can I, interact with her in a way that I can interact with her, but I don't take on, her drama, her wanting to, talk ugly about our co-worker, or her wanting to push the blame, of what's going on at the office on other people. I don't have to tap into that. So it's just about building that awareness. And I just wrote here on page 113, I wrote, we need to create a pause in our lives so we can create time to switch out of the Labrador brain, which is that emotional brain, and click into our thinking brain. And it makes a huge difference. Like Kenny said, if you got to pause and take a drink of water, if you have to step out of the room, if you have to go out in the garage and get a wrench and bang on a pipe for a few minutes and calm down, do what you got to do. But you're going to start developing those muscles of not allowing the emotional brain to determine your actions. That emotional brain can stir up and you can go, okay, what's my emotion right now? Where is that coming from? And then go to your thinking brain and let your action come from there and not from your emotions. And that's hard. It takes a minute to build that muscle of not responding in action to emotional reasons, but doing it from your thinking brain.
And I just want to share this, Allie. We had, I'm not going to use any names for their privacy, but an example was given several weeks ago where a client had a child that was being bullied at school. And their initial response was, well, I'm going to go on the bus and I'm going to just, that was that villain mentality, of course, being protective of your child. I get it. But that person said, instead of acting out of emotion and doing that and maybe making a scene, they just sat back in that and thought about it a little bit. How can I respond to this in an adult manner, but also use it as a teaching moment for my son or daughter to show them, hey, when this happens to you at school, you don't have to feel like you don't have anybody to turn to, or that if you do turn to somebody, that if we approach it in the right manner, there will be consequences to those actions. So instead of jumping up on the school bus, a simple phone call was made to school, a simple meeting was had at school, that other child was brought in. And then once that other child was brought in and they all sat together, they worked out their indifferences. And there were some tears by the person who did the bullying, and some apologies, sent out by that person to the one that got bullied. And the parent said that when they left that meeting, she said, my daughter looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, I'm so glad that you were able to come today. And so that daughter felt seen and felt heard with that issue at school. But here again, she said, had I not read this element before, it would have been Western, if you will. I'll leave it at that. So, Allie, you got anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah, so here we are at on page 114, stop, challenge, choose. Stop, challenge, choose is what we use if somebody brings donuts to the office. We pause and we go, well, I could eat that donut and it'd be majorly delicious, but afterwards I'm going to feel sick and then my energy is going to drop and I'm going to throw off all the good work I've done all week long. So I'm going to choose to not have the donut. I'm going to go have my s'mores bar because it's time for me for my next fueling. Those kind of things can really also, stop, challenge, choose can be used in those emotional moments. Pause, becoming fully aware of what's going on in that moment, choosing to delay the immediate response from being triggered so that we can engage our thinking brain. And a big part of this self-awareness program also is realizing how much our ego plays a part in how we live our life and how it's not always our most helpful friend in things. And one of the beautiful things about this journey is when we unpack what we've been doing and we learn, we become aware of, oh, I've been doing these things that don't serve me, but I have the control and power to change these things. It helps us look at other people and you can go, well, that's all that is. They just don't know how to do that yet. They're where I was when I started, and your heart changes. And you don't have that ego response when they say something to you that's not very nice or kind or thoughtful or helpful. You go, well, I really know that's not about me. that's because they're operating in that drama triangle. They just don't know yet. They've got a lot of healing they need to do. And I went through that, and it just makes you a humbler, kinder person. I mean, it doesn't mean you like it when they do it to you, but you've got that place inside and that peace where you go, I get it that that's not really about me. And it doesn't have to change the trajectory of all the good that you're doing in your life. And who knows, maybe by them seeing how you don't respond or react or bite back at them the way everyone else does. So I guarantee if they talk to you like that, they talk to everyone else like that, maybe they'll start to notice and want to have some of that peace that you have, and they'll want to do what you're doing, or they'll start to want to heal. That's what we hope. When we go out there and we do this, it's a humbling experience to do this journey, but it's also a beautiful, joyous thing to heal from the inside out. And then you'll find that when you get to your goal weight, whatever that is, so many other beautiful changes have happened here that you're just going to keep moving forwards in your health. You're not going to go back to where you were, because your brain is operating in a much healthier place, and you are in control, and you are the power behind your healing and your growth and your wellness in your life. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, with that said, I mean, we're going to wrap up element 4 tonight, and next week we're going to dive in with element 5, optimizing your surroundings. So, but I encourage everybody, even if you're watching a recording, to go back and sit in this element for a little bit and think about where you fall in that drama triangle. Think about what you can do, some things you can change every day, but just starting to develop that in mindfulness and that self-awareness. And if you go through life on autopilot, and you allow these emotions of stress to creep in, which allows something else to be put into your mouth, whatever that choice is. When you can start developing that self-awareness and take notice when you drift, as he talks about, on page 122, when you feel yourself drifting, is it a stop, challenge, and choose moment, or what type of moment is it? And that's where you need to start really developing that self-awareness and take note of it. And just like Ali said, while you're getting healthy in your body, when you start recognizing these moments when they happen, they will become less frequent and they will become less intense. And then, it'll just be a quick fleeting thought for you one day. And the next thing you know, you won't have it anymore. And so it's just about taking your mind to that mental gym and beginning to make that micro habit of, number 1, being aware, and number 2, how do I change it? So anyway, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop.